Good morning, and thank you very much for having me and for inviting me today. It's a great pleasure and a great honor for me to be here in Tokyo today, and I would like to thank you, the organizer, for having me. It was very impressive to look at this room, and especially because today I would like to talk with you about a topic that, in my opinion, is very, very important, especially if you look at the topic of national security. I do apologize if I will read my presentation, but my presentation is a very technical and a very focused analysis of what European Union, Italy, United Kingdom, and United States are doing in public-private partnership about cybersecurity. So I prepared my slides, and as you can see, it's more simple for you to follow me and to follow what I want to do today with you. Before to start, I would like to introduce myself and tell you why I'm here talking. Next slide, please. I'm a cybersecurity lawyer. I'm from Italy. I'm a cybersecurity lawyer, and I'm the chief of ICT law, privacy, and cybersecurity and legal department in the Italian Carnelutti law firm. But I'm also a member of the governing board and president of the Cybersecurity Commission of the Italian Atlantic Committee, and I'm a president of the Cybersecurity Working Group of the American Chamber of Commerce in Italy. And I give a lot of lecture for several university and military research institutions in Italy and for NATO. That's because from 2014 I was included by NATO in the list of the key opinion leaders for cyberspace security, and also in 2014 the American magazine Forbes put my name in the 20 best worldwide cyber policy experts to follow online. Next slide. Before to start, please go. Before to start the core of my presentation today, I would like to introduce the scenario at the moment. This because, in my opinion, the high level of pervasiveness of technologies and the internet in every field of today's social fabric has completely changed every aspect of our society, service delivery and management, access to information, both in its quantity and quality, as well as the relationship between the aforementioned elements and the citizens. And what's more, this was made in a rather limited stretch of time. As if that was enough to highlight the paramount importance in the so-called information society, technology and the internet are the root of those complex systems that ensure the correct functioning of a state's strategic and critical sector, namely like energy, communication, transport, finance, and so on. Hence, they function as one of, in my opinion, of the pivots around which each country's economic and social well-being revolves, as well as its support and the starting point of its growth. So guaranteeing a strategic approach to the security of this sector and planning its growth, but also assessing short, medium, and long-term risks, as well as producing forecasts on its evolution, are therefore, in my opinion, an essential and a priority task in each good government political agenda today. This is true, especially nowadays, when the protection of the cyberspace represents a top priority challenge, since only the effective protection of such a space, of the cyberspace, can let everyone live a normal life from a political, social, economic, technological, industrial, and cultural point of view. So from this perspective, the public-private partnership looks like a growing functional need in cybersecurity, mainly due to two reasons. The first one is the fact that the majority of critical infrastructures are owned and managed by private. The second reason is that the use of information and communication technologies in such systems has become widespread, and their level of interconnection being significantly high. In addition, it is no coincidence, in my opinion, that an accurate comparative analysis of all the public European and international cyber strategy show how 2 of the 3 strategic guidelines they have in common are related to strengthening international cooperation and public-private information sharing, public-private partnership and information sharing. Please. So, going deep to the analysis of what the most important states in the European Union and in the West are doing about public-private partnership, I have to start with the European Union, because the European Union is doing a great job, and is doing a great job from 2013, when the EU adopted its first cyber strategy. We declared aim to help ensuring an open, safe, and secure cyberspace in cooperation with member states and other supranational institutions. Such an action proved to be necessary, as nowadays information and communication technology have become the backbone, say the strategy, of the European economic growth and a major resource for EU citizens. So the following, please go next. Next slide, please. Okay. The following 5 strategic priorities, these 5 strategic pillars have been identified in the document. The first one is achieving cyber resilience. The second one is the pillar that point out that drastically reducing cybercrime, both through rules already in force and by introducing new sets of rules affecting specific critical sector, which means actively working to increase member states' domestic operational capabilities and to improve European Union structure, coordination, and support. And from this point of view, a great work is making by European Cybercrime Center, the EC3, but also from ENISA, that is the European Cybersecurity Agency. The third pillar is developing cyber defense policy and capabilities related to the common security and defense policy. The fourth is develop the industrial and technological resources for cybersecurity. And the last pillar for the European Union is to establish a coherent international cyberspace policy for the European Union and promote core EU values. Next one. Although public-private partnership sharing is one of the strategic principles common to all the cyber strategies worldwide, it has been bluntly left off the 5 EU strategy priorities and principles, as you can hear. It is mentioned almost exclusively with regard to ENISA, the European Public-Private Partnership for Resilience. In some statements, aim to improve preparedness and engagement of the private sector, especially in the context of resilience and network and information security. But, next slide, in July 2016, the European Union launched the first European public-private partnership on cybersecurity. The European Union will invest by 2020 1.8 billion only in this partnership, in this priority, under its research and innovation program named Horizon 2020. And cybersecurity market players that we adhere to this program, represented by the European Cybersecurity Organization, are expected to invest 3 times more of 1.8 billion of euros. So this partnership will also include members from national, regional, and local public administration, research centers, and academia. The aim of the partnership is to foster cooperation at early stages of the research and innovation process and to build cybersecurity solutions for various sectors such as energy, health, transport, and finance. But another element very important to understand the approach of the European Union to public-private partnership is to analyze the directive, the recent directive that concern measures to ensure a high common level of network and information security across the Union. Pay attention because it's the first law, the first directive that try to harmonize the cybersecurity level of all European countries. And it will be enforced by May 2018. And must be implemented by May 18, and those are the objective, the pillars of this directive. The first one is lay down obligation for all member states to adopt a national strategy, a national cybersecurity strategy of network and information system. The second one is create a cooperation group in order to support and facilitate strategic cooperation and the exchange of information among member states and to develop trust and confidence among them. The third one is to create a computer security incident response team network, CSIRT network, in order to contribute to development of trust and confidence between member states and to promote swift and effective operational cooperation, but also to establish security and notification requirements for operators of essential services and for digital service provider. And the last one, the fifth strategic pillar of this directive is to lay down obligation for member states to designate national competent authorities, single point of contact and CSIRTs with tasks to the security of network and information system. And the newly adopted European cyber strategy that was adopted in the 13th September, so 2 months ago, entitled Resilience, Deterrence, and Defense, Building Strong Cybersecurity for the European Union, pinpoints that building on the work of member states and the public-private partnership, a further step will be to reinforce European Union cybersecurity capability through a network of cybersecurity competence center within a European cybersecurity research competence center at its heart. This network and its center will stimulate development and deployment of technology in cybersecurity and complement the capacity building efforts in this area at EU and national level. It's more important, the European Union plans to propose a short-term injection of funding of 50 million euro to this end. And this activity will complement the ongoing implementation of the public-private partnership for cybersecurity. But also, the newly adopted cyber strategy of 13 September 2017 also highlights that evidence suggests that people from around the globe identify cyber attacks from other countries as among the leading threats to national security. Given the global nature of the threat, building and maintaining robust alliance and partnership with third countries is fundamental for the European Union to the prevention and deterrence of cyber attacks, which are increasingly central to the international stability and security. So the European Union will prioritize the establishment of a strategic framework for conflict prevention and stability in cyberspace in its bilateral, regional, and multi-stakeholder and multilateral engagements. So it's very important, especially after what we have heard by the President's speaker, by Patrick, before. And also a very important statement in the new cyber strategy of the European Union is the last sentence. The European Union strongly promotes the position that international law in particular the United Nations Charter, applies in cyberspace. So it's very, very important, in my opinion, this sentence, because we are going, as we heard before, we are going in a scenario in which the cyber warfare activities is going more and more real. Next, please. This is the big picture of the European Union. So we have the strategy, the new cyber strategy, we have the new directive, the NIS directive, and ES directive that's try to harmonize. So the European Union is pushing a lot of money and a lot of attention in the public-private partnership, among other strategic pillars that are in place. But let me talk also about my country, Italy. Italy, since 2013, the Italian government clearly pointed out the necessity of a strong public-private partnership through the Prime Minister decree of the 24th January 2013, setting out a strategic guidelines for the national cyber protection and ICT security. A necessity marked again also through the new Prime Minister decree of the 17th February of 2017. In an effort to take its first and essential step to integrate the already existing structure and knowledge in the field of cybersecurity, the Italian government in 2013 and 2017 stressed the importance of private sector entities in ensuring national ICT security. In fact, according to Article 11 of the aforementioned decrees, the private stakeholders who provide public networks of communication or electronic communication services to the public, operating national and European critical infrastructure depending on ICT system, are subject to a dedicated agreement. And in this agreement, the private stakeholder shall report to the cybersecurity unit any significant security and integrity violation of their own computer system, also through those authorized to obtain this kind of communication. They shall adopt all the best practice and measure necessary to pursue cybersecurity as provided by the Ministry of Economic Development and the Committee for the Security of the Italian Republic. But also they must share information with the Agency for Intelligence and Security, so with our Secret Service, and allow access to their Security Operation Center and database that are relevant to cybersecurity. And the last one is to collaborate to management of a cyber crisis by restoring the functionality of the system and networks they operate. So you can see that pursuant Article 11 of our ministry decree, the private stakeholders are tasked with very, very important activities and very, very important duties to share, to communicate, especially to our Secret Service, any significant security and integrity violation, and also to allow access to their Security Operation Center. Next slide, please. And those are the six strategic pillars of our cyber strategy of 2013. And as you can see, no less than 3 out of 6 guidelines envisage also the involvement of the private sector, more or less directly. Are the point 2, 3, and 4 of our cyber strategy. The point 2 is strengthening our capabilities to protect national critical infrastructure, strategic assets and stakeholders. Point 3 is facilitation of all public-private partnerships. And the point 4 is promoting and dissemination of the culture of cybersecurity. So that's why, especially the point 3, I told you at the start of my presentation that the Italian government is very, very, very focused on public-private partnership. It's important to mention also that the Italian government has created a joint venture with all the university in our country, that the name is CINI. It's a collaboration institute of all our university for cybersecurity. So the Law University, the Information Technology University, the Political Science University, they are consortiated all together and offer to the government free counseling about cybersecurity. Next slide, please. And those are the 11 operational guidelines of our cyber strategy, because we have published in 2013 a cybersecurity strategy with the six strategic pillars that we saw, but we also produced operational guidelines to reach the goal of our cyber strategy, and those are the 11 operational guidelines. As you can see, 8 out of the 11 listed operational guidelines might generically outline a direct involvement of the private sector. Only 2 of them expressly and specifically deal with public-private partnership, and are the point 2 and the point 3 of our operational guidelines. The point 2 is enhancement of the organization, coordination, and dialogue between national, private, and public stakeholders. And the point 3, as you can see, as you can read, is the promotion and dissemination of the culture of cybersecurity, especially through education and training. So this is what the Italian government has done from 2013 and to today. Next slide is the introducing slide about the United Kingdom. United Kingdom, in the course of time, also developed its own strategic approach to cybersecurity. Please note that the first step taken in this direction dates back to 2009, almost 10 years ago, when the cybersecurity strategy of the United Kingdom was established aimed to create dedicated governmental bodies and to establish intergovernmental programs to strengthening British IT system resilience. And the above-mentioned document has been almost totally replaced in 2011 by the UK Cybersecurity Strategy. And furthermore, next slide, the 2011 Cyber Strategy was recently updated by the UK National Cybersecurity Strategy 2016-2021, and this strategy is setting 3 main strategic objectives to be reached within 2021. The strategic pillars are to defend, deter, and develop. So the UK with defend means to defend the UK against evolving cyber threats, to respond effectively to incidents, and to assure UK networks, data, and systems that are protected and resilient. So citizens, businesses, and the public sector have the knowledge and ability to defend themselves. This is the first objective of the new cyber strategy of the United Kingdom. The second pillar of the new cyber strategy is to deter. So the UK will try to be a hard target for all forms of aggression in cyberspace. They stated to detect, understand, investigate, and disrupt hostile action taken against the United Kingdom, pursuing and prosecuting offenders. So they state that have the means to take offensive action in cyberspace, and they would like to choose to do so if they are in front of imminent cyber threats. So for the first time in European Union, member states, I know that is the Brexit, but at the moment United Kingdom is in the European Union, was for the first time a European country expressly include offensive cyberspace operation in a strategy. The third one is to develop. So the United Kingdom have an innovative, growing cybersecurity industry underpinned by world-leading scientists, research, and development. They have a self-sustaining pipeline of talent, improving the skill to meet their national needs across the public and private sectors. So this is the part of the PPP collaboration, PPP partnership. And they conclude this, stating that the cutting-edge analysis and expertise will enable the UK to meet and overcome future threats and challenges. So, next slide. As a part of a broader action plan in the field of public-private partnership, it's very important for me to underline that on October 2016, so 1 year ago, the UK government has created the National Cybersecurity Centre. And the National Cybersecurity Centre provides a unique opportunity to build effective cybersecurity partnership between government, industry, and the public. It brings together the capabilities already developed by the information security arm of the GCHQ, that is the United Kingdom Intelligence, the Centre for the Protection of National Infrastructure, the CERT UK, the Computer Emergency Response Team of the UK, and the Centre of Cyber Assessment. So this center will provide cyber incident response and be the UK's authoritative voice on cybersecurity. In fact, the National Cybersecurity Centre will provide a unified source of advice for the government cybersecurity threat intelligence and information assurance, the strong public face of the government, of the UK government's action against cyber threats, working hand in hand with industry, academia, and international partners to keep the UK protected against cyber attacks, and a public-facing organization will reach back into GCHQ, that reach back into the intelligence community of the United Kingdom to draw on necessarily secret intelligence and world-class technical expertise. So, also the United Kingdom is working very, very hard on public-private partnership, and the National Cybersecurity Centre is one of the best elements of their cyber strategy. Next slide. This is the slide that introduces the United States, the last one countries that we focus on today, before to start with the second part of my presentation that will be more focused on the strengths and challenges to create a real and efficient public-private partnership. As you know, United States is one of the most, probably the most important actor in cyberspace, and you have to know that actually there are 10 cyber strategy in force in the United States solely in the sector of cybersecurity, and no less that 9 of them openly emphasize the leading role played of public-private partnership. In this perspective, the government needs to develop a process addressed to assist the private sector in preempting, detecting, and countering cyber attacks, as well as sharing relevant information both at home and international. The United States have always paid a particular attention, in my opinion, to cooperation in this sector. Back into 2003, the action and recommendation of the first national strategy to secure cyberspace of the United States has already stressed the role of private stakeholders, underlined several times the need for a real partnership in these matters, both for the establishment of a functional national cyberspace security response system and the implementation of a program to reduce cyberspace vulnerabilities and threats, as well as for reaching an effective and essential level of international cooperation. Such a demand, next slide please, has obviously been constant and primary through the years until being put into writing and highlighted by President Obama Presidential Policy Directive on Critical Infrastructure Security and Resilience, and by the Executive Order on Improving Critical Infrastructure Cybersecurity, both made public in February 2013. Next, specifically according to the policy, 3 essential strategic principles are at the root of the reform process. Namely, the first one is strengthening the security level of American critical infrastructure and their resilience. Again, resilience is a word that you are hearing from me from all the cyber strategy, the European and the West cyber strategy, and their resilience to cyber attacks, particularly by clarifying functional relationship, so role and responsibility across the federal government. The second strategic principle is to enabling effective and inclusive cyber threat information sharing, especially by actively involving intelligence agency, again, and the private sector. This latter actually responsible for most of such critical systems, both in the US and the European Union. And the last, but not least, essential strategic principle of the policy of President Obama of the 2013 is implementing the best and most appropriate aggregation function and data analysis with regard to cyber incident occurred, threat posed, and emerging risk, both from a strategic and operational standpoint. But next slide, okay. Also, the Section 4 of the Executive Order on cybersecurity information sharing also focuses on the need to effectively and promptly exchange with the private sector the information related to cyber threats. So according to Section 4, it is the policy of the United States government to increase the volume, timelines, and quality of cyber threats information shared within the US private sector entities so that these entities may better protect and defend themselves against cyber threats. I'm citing in this sentence, I'm citing the executive order. So therefore, the crucial role assigned by the American government to public-private partnership in the field of cybersecurity and consequently of information sharing, in my opinion, seems to be clear. And this is, next slide, especially true after the creation of a national cybersecurity and communication integration center, very similar to what the United Kingdom has done last year, but this was made 3 years before. And the National Cybersecurity and Communication Integration Center is put in place within the Department of Homeland Security, the DHS of the United States, and aim to offer a nexus for information exchange among government, private sector, citizen, law enforcement agency, intelligence, and defense operator. In conclusion, the United States government has undoubtedly made significant efforts in the course of time in order to refine and make cybersecurity public-private partnership as efficient as possible. But an accurate analysis of the American organizational system shows a huge difference if compared with the European Union member states' approaches. In my opinion, the United States of America government is the major player in promoting cooperation and providing private sector entities with most of the necessary information about cyber threats, while the approach of the European countries, of the European Union, is diametrically opposite, at least for the countries taken into account so far. As for possible challenges instead, the high level of complexity of the organizational structure makes it extremely difficult to create real trust relationship among the actors involved in the several partnership projects. This is due to the particularly wide-ranging nature of the projects themselves, which also include the participation of far too varied subjects in my opinion, especially in view of providing security clearance to access information shared, as in the case with the NCCEC, so the competence center that we are talking about. So those are the big picture of the most relevant states, European countries and West countries that at the moment are focusing, in my opinion, on the public-private partnership. Next slide. And my speech today doesn't want to only show what states are doing, but my objective today is also to giving you some thoughts about the strengths and the challenges about public-private partnership. Sorry. Next slide. So in the light of the above, and from the further analysis of the various international approaches, 3 strengths can be played out, clearly reflecting the undeniable need for each government to be equipped with structure targeted to create good public-private partnership processes in the field of cybersecurity. Therefore, the factors which might make it happen are detailed as follows. The first one, the need for network building is clear-cut now, to be reached both through private and public-private cooperation, as none of the subjects involved has an overall overview at the moment, nor all the necessary information to effectively tackle the matter on its own. So cybersecurity is a common responsibility. The private sector has the tactical information, the government has the big picture, the strategic information. So they have to cooperate. But also, by building their networks, private entities, in my opinion, can become really influential in their relationship with the public sector and reach such relevant goals and effective levels of negotiation that would have never been possible if working separately. And the third strength, in my opinion, is that the public sector needs to establish close relationship with private stakeholders, given its frequent incapability to autonomously gain relevant information concerning technical operation, tools, technology, and even at times information related to cyber actor strategy. Those are the 3 strengths, in my opinion, but there are also, together with strengths, demanding challenges need to be dealt with, in my opinion, comprehended and overcome as soon as possible, so that a real effective and good cooperation system can start as soon as possible. In this regard, the main critical issue to face, we all face, are that to protect more and more specifically the privacy and the human and civil rights of the citizen, who may times find themselves indirectly involved in cooperation and information sharing activities without being aware of it. The second challenge is to limit as much as possible the risk that public-private partnership might result in free market distortions, both for the protection of private entities' competitiveness and of governmental interest, by accurately setting such partnership in a recognized legal framework and identifying proper authorities for periodic control procedures. The third challenge is to move beyond raising awareness and establishing partnership with the only businesses owning systems classifiable as a critical infrastructure, as about 90.8% of the overall amount of businesses is made by small and medium enterprise. So we have to focus also on small and medium enterprises and not only on the companies that are classifiable as a critical infrastructure. And this is true especially in the European Union. And we are missing this point because we are focusing all our activities on the critical infrastructure, but we are not taking into account that the small and medium enterprises are the 90.8% of our economy. Please, the next one. There are also other challenges to build a really effective public-private partnership and effectively detect, counter, and reduce cyber attacks by creating a central reference system for information exchange between the public governmental sector and the main private stakeholders, but also to simplify as much as possible the internal procedures for audit and control of that public information, which might be of help of private sector entity, so as to increase the promptness of information dissemination. Another challenge, in my opinion, is to keep a low structural complexity in order to create solid trust relationship among the actors involved in the cooperation process, but also to arrange procedure addressed to ensuring mutual information exchange at different classification levels, so as to avoid any slack or even a deadlock should far from various subjects take part to the project, especially with regard to the security clearance. And the last one, challenges, is to develop procedures aimed to evaluate private entities' feedback and short, medium, and long-term results achieved in implementing public-private partnership projects. So what came to light? Next one. Okay, thank you very much. What came to light helps summarize the main factor for building a really effective and efficient public-private partnership. In this regard, the following elements have to be considered, in my opinion. The public sector shall equip with only one reference body in order to manage its relationship with private stakeholders. The public reference body shall be closely linked to the top of the political and strategic decision-making bodies. It is of prime importance also for me that the political and strategic hub exchange information with its private operational branch in the shortest time possible, because the threat is very fast, as you know. But also, industry shall identify, in my opinion, only one internal representative to stay in contact with the public, with the public sector. Next. But the general information sharing, in my opinion, is of no use. Instead, public information should be exchanged as much as possible with privates, and should be detailed and disseminated at least with regard to the kind of technologies used by private entities and the industrial sector at risk. And we also have to periodic and not occasional relationships should be planned, and to put in place precise rules to regulate cooperation agreements in order to limit as much as possible the risk that public-private partnership only follow the initiative, or even worse, the arbitrary decision of those involved. But also the widespread controls, both internal and parliamentary, shall be arranged. And the last one, in my opinion, to have an efficient public-private partnership, the last one element, it's that, in my opinion, it is essential to develop specific education and research projects to be appropriately funded by public and private entities as well. So, I don't know if the next war stories, when I will be will be like this, please. of a grandfather that talks to newpos about cyber war stories, in which we was inside of a Chinese firewall. We have a lot of bots on the left, a lot of firewalls. We lost a lot of firewalls during the war that we fought. But probably yes, in the future, the war stories will be very likely to this funny picture. My conclusion is that there is no doubt. Next, thank you very much. There is no doubt that complex objectives inevitably mean critical issues to cope with. Furthermore, it needs, in my opinion, to be underlined that the peculiarities of the cyberspace make wide-range partnership absolutely necessary and essential. This is especially true since the stakeholders active in such a domain are not in a position to control and gain all, again, the necessary information so as to effectively tackle this threat. Yet, the fact remains that now more than ever, cybersecurity has to be regarded as an essential part of security itself, of each country's economic growth and competitiveness, and consequently of its national and international economic strategy. Therefore, upon implementation of these partnerships, their actual and extremely high economically and military value needs to be considered, instead of exclusive focuses on the surely helpful, but in this case marginal, technological and engineering aspect as done as so far. So, thank you very much for your attention, and if you have any question, it would be a great pleasure for me to answer. Thank you.
はい、ありがとうございました。それでは
Thank you very much. We'd like to welcome 2 questions from the floor. If you have a question, please raise your hand. So, in the 4th row, we'll bring the microphone, so please wait. Can you raise your hand again?
It's very inspiring of your presentation. Thank you so very much. And in your presentation, I think you focused on this partnership between public and private sectors. I personally also think it's very important. But as you pointed out in the latter part of challenges, I think it's in challenges 1. Would you please move to the slides of challenges?
Challenges 1?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Slide number 35.
Yeah,
yes.
I don't remember the pages. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So here you talks about the risks, the privacy and civil rights of the citizens. So I think in the physical world, it's also a very big issue we have to consider. As we know, years ago we have this Brexit before. Yeah. So the separation of European Union is I don't know how to say it. It's some kind of very difficult. So my concern is would this physical separation, the separation would have some impacts on this cyberspace. So I'd like to know your understanding of the how to handle the relationship between physical world and this cyberspace. How to build this partnership. We know, like I personally am a big fan of like 007, Jason Bourne. So we can see a lot of national profit conflicts between different states, and how do you think about those the similar kind of conflicts existing in the future cyberspace?
Okay, thank you very much for your question. Your concern are my concern.
I think
because
it's very
so I agree with you. There is a big problem about this, especially now in the European Union we are facing the problem with the United Kingdom at the moment, because after the Brexit, the United Kingdom had to rewrite all the law, especially from the privacy protection and protection of personal data. So I totally agree with you. I have a big concern, and I have a big concern that actually physical security and cybersecurity are not communicating so much. And this is very important that they communicate, but we have to point it out that in 5 years we don't have more physical security as we thought about this, because everything will be cyber or cyber-ed. Everything. So we'll talk in 5 years of security in general, taking in our mind that security is what we today call cybersecurity. But I totally agree with your concern.
Okay, so you think in 5 years in the future it would be actually borderless in cyberspace? There's no states, no like American citizen in cyberspace? No,
I don't think that the government will totally cancel their territory, the citizenship. The states will try to be states in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years, and so on, because the states must project power on citizens locally, regionally, and internationally. So I don't think that we have to think in 5 years that the states will cancel the territory and the power that they project today. But my concerns are about the data protection law, because a cyber-ed world will be a big issue for the privacy. Today is a big issue for the privacy, and in the next 5 years will be a biggest issue for privacy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we will take one last question. こちら左ブロックのこちらの方お願いいたします。
Please.
Hi, my name is Steve Clement. I'm from Luxembourg. I am a security analyst for the National CSIRT of Luxembourg. Luxembourg, for those who don't know, is a European country. We actually do have a cybersecurity competence center, which we have recently inaugurated. There's a few things. I am extremely concerned that you think that a closer relationship with Secret Service is needed, because this is a one-way box. You talk to them, they talk not to you. And I think history of the recent past has showed us that that is actually quite problematic. So you're very vague in your presentation, actually. And for example, the GDPR is, in my country, a disaster for small companies because they have no clue what to do.
Also in Italy. Don't worry.
See. So that is one thing. I will ask a question, by the way. The other thing is, like, harmonization is, in 28 member states, not easy. So, for instance, and that will be my question, the critical infrastructure. If you can give me a concise explanation what that is and what that means, that would be fun. And finally, you have a lovely little company in your country called Hacking Team.
Yeah.
So how do you honestly regulate a company like Hacking Team in the scope of a public-private partnership? So it's actually two questions.
Okay, thank you very much for your question. You touched the point about the one-way communication between private entities to secret services and not the return in information. It's a very important point. And this is probably due to the necessity to identify security clearance to access to some information. So that's why in my presentation, when I put the page 38, please. Okay, 38, another one. Okay, thank you very much. I inserted that we need to focus on the specific technology, on the specific activities that made this company to give a specific clearance to access to information, because it's a very big problem, especially in the United States, that are 3 or 5 years in front of us about the information sharing. GDPR is a mess also in Italy, I think in all the European countries, and probably is a problem also for all the international community, because I don't know if you know, but probably yes, if you treat personal data of European citizens, you must apply the GDPR. You have no choice. If you treat personal data of a European citizen, you have to apply by May 2018 our General Data Protection Regulation. Coming to your question, Hacking Team. Hacking Team is I don't know if you know the very well known activity of Hacking Team was an Italian cybersecurity company that sell malware to law enforcement to spy, to intersect communication. We don't manage this at national level, because after the leaking of all the information, we made a very pervasive activity of, how to say in English, activity of analysis of all the system, or all the activities made by the company, but we can manage at the top of the process, because it's a common company that sells malware, so it sells software. So we understand to who was selling software after the leaking of the information. So we have not been able to manage at the top of the activity. Please.
Is potentially militarized.
Yes.
And they still exist. Don't get me wrong. They are not out of business. They still exist.
In Italy, no.
Really?
Yeah.
I saw them on a conference. So maybe they changed countries and
it's
they are now in Luxembourg
what they
to
say,
save taxes, but they still exist.
Yes, they still exist. From a legal point of view, they still exist, but I think that they are not in business anymore.
Well, thank you. Just give me an explanation on critical infrastructure. What is
critical infrastructure
for you?
We don't have a legal definition of critical infrastructure at the moment. You know it. Normally, we point out to critical infrastructure to all the computer systems that manage the very relevant services for the citizens, so energy, communication, transportation, and so on. But we do not have at the moment a legal definition of what is a critical infrastructure and what is not. So it's a very big question at the European level. Probably you can find a good definition that is very similar to one that I told you now in the NIST directive. In the directive that I have explained before for network information security, that is the first step of the European Union to try to harmonize the cybersecurity level of all the member states, the European member states. Thank you very much.